I actually think the sourdough swap has created uh, a bit more of a culture such that it's running in the background and not it's something separate from us and like how we go about our lives.
Hello and welcome to the Stoner Story Witch. My name is Kristen, and I am so grateful to be hosting this podcast on the lands of the Chorotega people, colonially known as Costa Rica. I am very excited to be sharing this episode with you. It is one that I am particularly proud of, and I hope that it is going to be the first episode of what will be an ongoing season. I'm going to call this Season 6, Episode 1 of the Stoner Story Witch podcast, which is where I am going to finally broadcast publicly a huge part of my life that has been very private and very personal, very immediate to the community of people that I live in shared physical space with. As longtime listeners have perhaps picked up, I have given little snippets here and there about the fact that I make sourdough and that it's part of a community building practice. I was on my friend Asteria's podcast a year and a half ago, Asteria's Convos. I will link to it in the show notes. That is probably where I have been the most public about this, and it was just being in conversation with somebody else who was holding just very gentle space for me to be able to talk about what feels really, really meaningful. When I first started the podcast 2 years ago, I had gotten into making sourdough, and it felt like it was this, making sourdough can resource me for this creative work that I want to be doing, which felt like at the time it was the podcast, and then it was writing a book. And I've really started to notice how the lines have been blurred, where it's like, am I doing the podcast and the book to support me in the sourdough, or is the sourdough, or it all feels like it is, they're all equal parts of meaningful work that just matters to me, that makes my life feel fulfilling. And I have felt so shy to actually put it into the world. And I have just been kind of resisting the call to be putting it out there. So in this year, I'm going to be posting more on both Substack as well as podcast conversations with people in this sourdough swap is what I call it, but it is essentially a virtual offers and needs market. And I'll refer to the Post Growth Institute because I have done a facilitation training with them. Because it's definitely adjacent to that kind of somatic practice, that very real mutual aid, community networking value system, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to spare the whole, the whole story, because I don't necessarily have the story all figured out about how I will share what the last 2 years have been like. But to honor this, not only is it the 2-year anniversary of the podcast, but it also happens to coincide with 2 years of this community initiative of bringing people together to practice offering the things that we have abundance in with ease and joy and for free in many cases. And then also a practice of actually asking for what we need, which is way harder. And anyway, it's been a really profound practice for me, privately, personally, interpersonally, community-wide. And I asked, the 80 people that are in this group, if any of them would be willing to come on the show and have a conversation with me. And some beloved friends and neighbors of mine agreed to have a conversation with me. And so I'm so excited to share with you the following conversation that I had with my dear friends and neighbors, Sarah and Dina. And I want to amplify that this type of work matters by giving it airtime on a podcast and letting it go out into the world in whatever way it needs to. So it is my hope that with this 6th season of the Stoner Story Witch podcast, I will invite people in my community that have been a part of the sourdough swap to share, you know, their experience of being in the swap. How would they describe it? What are the things that they enjoy about it? What is their personal intention or practice of the swap? Any impacts or shifts that they have noticed as a part of being involved in this, and then also wanting to make sure that I am not putting myself as the facilitator in some sort of, replicating a fascist dictatorship. That part of our shared values is that we are non-hierarchical, that there's an element of anarchy. And so there's also the question of what are our collective hopes, dreams, and visions for what this next year of community building would look like for us. So I think that feels complete for all I need to say here at the beginning. I hope you enjoy my conversation with my neighbors and friends, Sarah and Dina.
I just feel it does feel exciting and scary to be putting the swap into this public sphere, because it's just been for me, it's been such a private practice, and then also obviously a personal and community practice. So it feels exciting to, in like our third year together, being able to put a voice to what is it that we're doing, and why does it matter, and amplifying its mattering by just even energetically putting it out into the world is just like, here's another way that we can be together in community and be like choosing to practice things that matter to us. So I just am so grateful to have you both here. So welcome to the Stoner Story Witch podcast, Sarah and Dina. I'm so excited to have you here to talk about the sourdough swap. I want to just take a moment first and let you just kind of introduce yourself with the identities that you lead with, and just anything that feels like it might be relevant to our conversation today.
All right, I'll kick it off. My name is Sarah. I identify as a queer woman, mom, and I am white. Over to you, Dina.
Hi, Kristen. Hi, Sarah. So I'm Dina Palmer. I'm from the UK originally, and I identify as a number of things. So it's difficult to pin this down, but I am also queer. I'm also a woman. I'm a person of color. I'm also other things. A humanitarian by profession, a life partner, helping to raise two kids, and a friend, and many, many other things, which maybe is the topic of a different conversation, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you both for agreeing to come. We decided to have this conversation because the sourdough swap just celebrated, sort of, it's like 2 year, a little bit over 2 years of this community building initiative. I would describe the swap as, what it started as and what it's become are just two very different things. But for me personally, it's a practice playground for just being able to trust that I can ask for the things that I need, and practice saying no or holding back, and just being in a larger group of people that are committed to trying as best as we can within our capacities to meet the needs of our community. And just some of the things that you both have said to me over the last, week or two, I just was like, the sourdough swap has been wanting to have a little bit of a public presence, and I wasn't sure what it looked like. And I was just, oh my gosh, can we just sit down and record a conversation together? And you both so graciously accepted the invitation. And so that's just my intention of our time today. But I guess I would love to hear, what's I mean, you joined the sourdough swap just under a year ago. So I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, what was your experience of coming into this as it was already kind of in a process of becoming what it is becoming? Like, yeah, how did you jump in and what was that like for you?
Great question. I would back it up a little bit just so that I can give some context as to where we were at when we met you, Kristen, and started to make our way into your sourdough swap. We had just moved to Costa Rica after a very quick trip to decide what side of Costa Rica, what town, what school. And so within 3 days, I believe, of arriving and unpacking our suitcases, we went to a friend's kid's birthday party. And I'm really glad that we went there because that was the gateway to, and as we'll get into later, also led to us living in the house we're living in and being a part of the community. Um, that means so much to us. So I would just say meeting you at that birthday party was super fun. I know, Dina, you had more of a chat with her than I did, but I do know afterwards, I was like, Dina said something about, oh yeah, and Kristen, she does sourdough. I was like, okay, good. You have a sourdough person here. It just made us feel like, okay, we can ground into that relationship.
Oh,
Yeah. I would just add to Sarah's story because obviously it was the same context in which we met you. Um, but for me personally, it was a soft landing. Sarah and I had conversations about moving to a different country. Um, we both have experiences from overseas, living in different communities, living in different contexts. So that part was not new, but I was definitely a bit nervous about meeting people, having connections, building community, which is something that's always been critical to me. Um, I won't speak for Sarah, but I know Sarah has similar values. So that soft landing was a kid's birthday party and looking around at a group of adults and feeling like you're in the first day of school, kind of going, what am I going to say? No one's going to understand me for various reasons, including how I speak or what I do. And then you came along. And I think we did speak about sourdough, but that sort of came a little bit later in the conversation. I remember the first point was anarchin, sorry, you being an anarchist, and me being a little excited and kind of going, I get it. I used to be a socialist growing up, and I think that was the first point of bonding. And then the sourdough piece, which I'm happy to talk about, but my failed sourdough life was also a point of connection. But yeah, I think it was soft landing is how I will describe it, and a comfortable one in which Sarah looked at me and said, look, see, I told you, we will find our people.
oh. I remember that anarchist moment because I feel like, I mean, I remember coming home and being like, having like, yeah, like friend crushes on like, okay, there are like this queer couple that just moved and I I want to like fish for them as friends. And I think the moment for me is, you know, especially with like the socialist and anarchist, those are like words that carry so much weight. And so for me to just kind of be like, yeah, I build this community that's like this, and these are just kind of like who I am and what I'm about. And just the way that you were like, oh yeah, like that is a label that totally, and just you being like, oh, so you're an anarchist. And I just remember this sense of, oh, yes. Oh, okay, good. Like I don't have to kind of like tiptoe around. And so that definitely solidified for me. Y'all were people that it wasn't even like I had like a huge intention other than just, yeah, like an actual just, I don't know, emotional, social community connection with you very early on, which is such a treat to have with folks.
Us too. It's a treat for us too. It's like the warmest way to come into a new country, a new school, a new community. We felt very held. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yay. I know I kind of gave a quick overview of how I would describe the swap to like somebody who's like, what is this? So yeah, I'm curious how you would describe the swap if somebody were to say like, "Oh, sourdough swap, what's that?"
I find that the sourdough swap is a community online and a community in person that offers a lot of different forms of co-support. I won't say codependency, but mutual support without expectations of anything being, perfectly reciprocated. It's very much about, I'm going to turn off my video because you guys just froze. Sorry. But yeah, it's a beautiful community of people who, from what I can tell, are very different. Not necessarily a huge group of people you would go out to dinner with or share all your secrets with, um, but a pretty representative group of the very different types of people that live out here.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate how, Kristen, you moderate the group to keep it as neutral as possible and also with a positive kind of inward and outward looking angle. So, like looking in, what do you have to offer? You are valued. And then looking outward, what is it that you can share with others? And not like it's a burden, but it's a gift. So it's been a really interesting community to be a part of, both online and in person. Dina, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with how Sarah beautifully put that. I mean, I think what surprised me moving through the sourdough swap sort of over the months was, initially thinking and experiencing it as resource sharing, the support. But what I increasingly saw was people being incredibly vulnerable within it and using that space also just to have their human experiences, which did surprise me at first, at the sort of radical honesty of that, and then something that I definitely appreciate and think it's incredibly brave to do, and admirable. And then another word pops into my mind, solidarity. And then that then became more of a space I was sort of experiencing the sourdough swap. I mean, I don't interact with it hugely. I am very much a bystander, but yeah, especially the last few months, I've seen a lot of solidarity between members and the community at large, and yeah, holding, I guess, safe space in some form, um, and sort of hitting at people's discomfort, and you can see it, and people sort of having their little micro breakthroughs and being very honest about it. So yeah, it's difficult to describe because I think what you've created is something that is in formation and is being shifted and is changing depending on who's in it, and also probably your own personal journey as well is guiding it a little bit. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Can I
Yeah,
just add one thing, Kristen?
of course.
I just want to say, Dina, you are definitely not on the outside. You may feel like that, but I was just, right when you said that, I was thinking of multiple anecdotes where you met certain people either through the swap or like directly or
That's right.
indirectly. Like we had a neighbor that helped us build my daughter's bike. We have neighbors
That's true.
who we do like childcare exchanges or, share butter with. Um, and then, we also offer stuff for others. I actually think the
You're right.
sourdough swap has created uh, a bit more of a culture such that it's running in the background and not, it's something separate from us and like how we go about our lives.
Mm.
Even in the chat, if someone writes something, if Dina can help, she'll respond immediately. So I think
That's true.
just want to say you're not on the outside. I think
Thank
you
you.
just not notice it
Yeah,
anymore because it's just part of our lifestyle now.
that's
Oh.
a good point. Yeah, maybe I don't notice it because it's so ingrained. You're right. No, good point.
Yeah, I think there's a difference in not being like the facilitator, which is definitely the role that I have stepped into, and not being involved. And I think what my work has been lately has been even the times that I could respond quickly, being like, I'm gonna actually just finish my coffee or whatever. Like I'm gonna practice slowing down and letting someone else potentially step in, because it is a gift to be able to have the practice of connecting with somebody else. So just this week, somebody asked for like to borrow something, and I was like, I think I have that, but I was like, I'm just gonna pause, like just not kind of just hurry in this sense of urgency. And then the next time I like happened to check my phone, I saw that there was already someone else who was like, yeah, I got you. And I was like, oh, I didn't have to meet that need. And I think it's for me, I'm being able to like, and I truly do enjoy knowing when those connections happen.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they do happen. Thank you for naming that too, Sarah, that they often do happen off, like not in the large chat of, as of today, I think it's 80 people, but it's like somebody might put a request in this chat, and then for all I know, they're getting a dozen private messages, but maybe I see it and I'm like, hopefully they got their need met. I couldn't help, but um, so yeah, I love to hear that it's like the ways in which you, Sarah, can see that like it actually is unfolding in your life, that it's like a part of your lifestyle, even
Mhm.
if it's not like, oh, I'm active. You don't have to be active in the chat to be like an
Mhm.
active participant in that community practice, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like a club that we can opt in or out of. It's very much like it's just the vibe you've honestly cultivated, especially for our little neighborhood, but also beyond our little neighborhood. And it's really special. And that, honestly, I've talked to Dean about this. If we moved anywhere else,
Yeah.
I'm worried that we won't have this again. And how difficult would that be now that our expectations are to be more in community with people and to have more open doors and exchanges.
Mhm.
We really like it, especially after, having to move multiple times over our lives and losing jobs and COVID and being isolated with babies. This means even more at this time to us. And so now we feel a little bit like we can't leave.
Oh.
I would just add to that. I mean, I think I alluded to I landed in places and sort of always had a community, and but that community has usually been forged by people I work with, people of similar backgrounds in that sense, and people who are now lifelong dear friends who I can crack myself open with and be vulnerable with in certain spaces, right? What was different here was it was a group of relative strangers
Mhm.
brought together. And that is an incredibly difficult thing to do when people, the point of connection is just us,
Mhm.
right? Or bread,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, how it started, right? And I think that was incredibly powerful to see that the strangers can be brought together. And
Mm.
many of them still are strangers to us. And though they're known as well, we're like, oh, yeah, we know that person. Can't remember what they look like, but we already hold stories about people we don't know, and I think that's great.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's so interesting how like this, the sourdough swap just began where I was in a big sourdough baking frenzy. It was just a practice, a daily practice I was really enjoying. And I was like, I'm making more than I can possibly eat. And can I share it with someone? And then if they just ever have something, they can just give it to me. It was like for a couple months, it was just like 5 people. And then we jumped to like 11. We got to 50 people. And then there were some people that it's like, I truly haven't even met you. That felt kind of scary. But by then I had already had so much experience just facilitating. And I've done facilitation training with my teacher mentor, Carmen Spagnola. And a lot of experience, 4 years in the Numinous Network. So like I have a lot of experience of like being well held in a digital community space. And so kind of just being able to be like, oh, I felt so lonely when I first moved here because I wanted community and connection. I wanted to find my people, and I think those are like almost two separate things. Like your community doesn't necessarily have to be your people if you can connect on like, well, this is what matters to us, that we are together, that we take care of each other. Um, and it was interesting, yeah, hearing you, Sarah, say that like I try to keep it neutral because I've started like more intentionally. Like just this week, there are of of the 80 people in the group, about maybe a dozen of them identify as male, and a lot of them are dads, and so like kind of holding the complexity of a lot of community care is really just the unpaid and invisible labor of women. And also, there are some men here. And, I appreciate the fact that this is even a thing that you're willing to be inconvenienced by by having your phone blow up sometimes. But that does matter. And I appreciate you. But like I said, I try to say the words patriarchy and capitalism, and because I do want to be able to widen the aperture a little bit of like, why are we doing this? How are we co-creating like a world that we would prefer in the midst of hyper individualized capitalism? Um, and I think that's just one of the reasons I have really enjoyed when you have both kind of opened up and shared your experience of the swap and kind of reflected me and this group to me in that way, because it's like I feel so seen in it. And because there definitely have been times where I'm like, am I doing what I am hoping and feeling I'm doing? Like, is this work? Like just we all have those days of like, are the things that I'm doing mattering in the way that I want them to matter? And then when people are like, yeah, this matters to me, then it's like, oh, okay, good. I'm so glad.
Just want to reflect on one thing you said, which is, the invisible burden of care. And just, I even found myself leaning to like reaching out to you more. And I was like, stop doing that. Just because she's very resourceful doesn't mean she needs to be the one you ask for stuff all the time. But I
Oh.
just found myself kind of defaulting to that. And I was like, wow, I have a lot to unpack there. Because why couldn't I default to, Kevin or a different, different number or something? But so I thought that was really a special reflection for me to have as a woman. And just kind of being aware that we have those expectations of ourselves and of each other as well, which of course reinforces the patriarchy. So um, I've definitely caught myself doing that a few times.
I mean, I definitely think it makes sense because the facilitation training I've done is very like, and how I try to facilitate the swap is very like attachment oriented. Like I want it to feel good for people. Like I want to create a sense of safety and comfort, and so in some ways that does position me as an attachment figure of this, that it's like, oh well, Kristen always has something nice to say, she always celebrates, like, so it makes sense to me that I would be, the kind of the first person. It's so vulnerable to ask for things, and if I'm the only one being like, yay, you asked for a thing, here's a little fairy emoji, then I might be the first person someone is brave enough to ask. I love that you're reflecting on that, because there definitely have been times where I've just been like, I'm not the only one in the swap you can ask. And also like, it's everybody's in their own place in the journey, and then it's on me to be able to be like, okay, what would it take to make this a yes? Like how can I honor my capacity and this person's need, or do I know of someone else that can? So even that is still a practice for me, because the world is always going to have more needs than my capacity to meet them. Um, yeah, and it doesn't make someone else problematic for having a need or being too much or needy, for asking. So being able to like kind of honor both.
I do wonder about your role because in the fires you were like the go-to person for, and it just felt very natural and
Mhm.
not forced. You're the go-to person to organize resources for the firefighters and coordinate between like administration and a bunch of people that are all over the world, not
Yeah,
just here in our little neighborhood. And so I do feel like you, in essence, are a community leader, and so people are going to just constantly look to you
yeah.
to steer or to or to lead. And I think that's really beautiful and special, and it also probably creates a lot of pressure on
Yes.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciated when you mentioned that at one point when I was like, "Oh, it would be nice if more people would step in and help." And you were like, "Well, why would they when they know Kristen will take care of them?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And so yeah. And I also just want to say I really appreciate you, Sarah, and what you, like I will say, like how Dina was looking for her sourdough people, like, before you guys moved here, I was like, won't someone with a similar like concern for natural disasters and desire to plan for bad worst case scenarios? And then it was like, and then you're like, yeah, I've worked with USAID for dozens of years, or like it's like, wow, you are so qualified. And then you're like, I can offer my services to this community. And I was just like, oh my God, just that somebody else isn't just gaslighting me about the fire. Like they're like literally I
Mhm.
moved here and there would be like wildfires and I'd be like, what do we do? And people are like, oh yeah, no, they're fine.
Yeah.
It's not like California as well. And I was like, it's not until it is, like
Hmm.
Yeah.
nobody thinks it's gonna happen to them until it does. And so anyway, all of that to say, like I like feeling that I'm not the only one that's like, we need more of a plan. And also me, yeah, having conversations with, like some of the developers in the area of just being like, I'm happy to step in these kinds of ways, but like I need it to be part of a larger plan. Like it's like I can take this volunteer role, but I can't, like we can't just, yeah, there needs to be like a better plan in place. Because honestly, I do think that it was my years of facilitating the sourdough swap that just enabled me to be like, all right, how can we get resources together to get these firefighters what they need? um, and also, I don't want to enable inactivity by, like wealthy developers that absolutely have it within their means. And like I think like morally should be thinking of these things. And so it's just like, okay, how do I not just enable them to continue to not act and just being like, oh, women in the community will always just band
Yeah.
together and figure it out. So it really, I've really been sitting with that question of like, okay, well, certainly I'm not going to walk away when there's the need, um, but I need to be able to say like, okay, I can perform in this way within a larger ecosystem of preparedness and planning. And yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it all.
Yes, that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I don't, that's what feels so nice. And even just that little practice, which has been my, like I said a little bit earlier, my more recent intention or practice is being like, what if it actually didn't have to be me? What would it look like if I just actually didn't meet a need for a little while and just trusted that like the other 79 people in this group um, probably probably can. Um,
Hmm.
They can, but I think people also inherently, and they will, if you dropped away for a little while and said, someone else step in, but people do inherently also look for leadership.
mhm.
um, inspired leadership, caring leadership, kind leadership. And I think you do provide that. And I think part of it is the term that when Sarah was talking about you are a community leader, it's like, yeah, of course. And community leaders usually have a council around them, right? The council of elders, what I mean, when we're not elders, but you know what I mean? But in the sense of whether that's longevity of the time you've been here, whether it's the depth of connections, networks that already exist, and sort of supporting people who are willing to come into that space to then act as sort of, some co-leaders would help
Yeah.
other people feel comfortable that they can also step in, because I think it's if people will always move on, right? It's just human instinct to, okay, couldn't get my need met here, so I'm going to try and see if it can be met here. But I think what you've created is also, yeah, people do look up to you in leading and for answers, and maybe there's too much codependency at times in that, rather than interdependence. But I think it's an important thing still that
Yeah.
we have some leadership within the community who can say this is how it is without being while being inclusive and you know
Yeah.
collaborative and
Yeah, I have definitely thought about what it would look like to have a couple people who've been in the swap for a year or two become co-admins with particular roles or whatnot. That is definitely something. And I guess, and I know we're wrapping into kind of our wind down time. So maybe we can kind of say, okay, in this third year, intentions, hopes, visions, dreams for like what could come next. That 100% is something I've been thinking about. I mean, and in some ways, I do feel like I've unofficially done that with, there's like Soul in the community. Like she and her husband John do so much culturally. They do, like story nights and poetry events and all sort. Like it's just that also is such a what feels to me such a I don't know, it's like they just create like such sacred spaces for community to come together in, I think like mystical ways. And I have not yet, said like, would you be willing to, I don't even know what that ask or what that would look like. But in my head, there are people that are doing the work of building community in the ways that come naturally to them and that really matter to me. That I get to be held in those spaces. I don't have to plan. I don't have to organize. I don't. And so maybe leaning more into that. Anyway, I'm curious how you guys would answer. Like, yeah, hopes, dreams, visions for the future of the swap. And this could be collectively or even for you, like how your intentions or practices within this space might shift into the next iteration of what's to come.
I think mine's pretty simple. I sort of I think I expressed this to you the other day at your sourdough swap event, which was I really enjoy the public coming together, the physical presence of meeting swappers and people within the community. And I think that's how I am more comfortable connecting with people, even if I want to be a bit shy and isolated for, the first 20 minutes, but that brings me a lot of energy and, life source in that sense. And I think it's important that we have that. And I think you've done a great job. I know it's a huge lift, but however we can participate in bringing people together. And as you said, I know Sol and John do that a lot, but I think there are other avenues. And I personally have a personal passion for food and bringing people together around tables, in more intimate settings and sort of having people within the sourdough. And even if it is one of those rotating, back 10 years ago in London and New York and places, people would go over to strangers' houses and be cooked for, and they would rotate members around the table. And so, I think there are a lot of ideas around that. And, food has been central to the swap. And I think there are a number of people who are professional chefs in the swap and other things. It'd be great to sort of come around food, would be one idea. And also debates. I mean, personally, I would also like to have conversations with people and and open conversations about the world.
Hmm.
Something I miss, and I'm not 100% always sure what people's sort of perspectives, views, comfort zones are in that. So yeah, I'll stop there.
I would love for the group to be a bit more selective for membership, to be
Mm.
honest. In particular, I would love for the people who are not involved at all, and especially those that also don't live here
Hmm.
most of the time, that they be taken off the list respectfully. Um, because to be honest, I would be able to be more vulnerable if I felt like there weren't a bunch of lurkers who have never participated, and it just feels like a very special private space.
Hmm.
And also there's some stuff I don't say because I'm like, oh, I think, my landlords are in this group, or I think so and so's in this group, and I'm like,
Sure.
oh, no, and it's nothing terrible. It's just that feeling of being able to be held and all of that. I personally can't do that with all the lurkers. And when
Yeah.
you do it, I'm like so amazed. And I'm like, God, she's so brave, and strong to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the things holding me back is I feel like there's a sourdough swap like core team. Uh, you know
Mm.
what I mean? And most of that core team lives here. We see each other. And I would honestly love to like get more time with that group and like really have a bit more intentional structure. Like, when I'm really on social media, but when you join a group on like Facebook or whatever, you have to
Hmm.
say
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes to all these rules.
Hmm.
Um, I think that is a good thing to have. I also feel like um, being more upfront about the types of conversations that are welcome and the types that aren't
Mm.
would also be really helpful. And I know there's other community chats where they go off the rails a bit because there is no kind of linchpin, like you are the linchpin of this artist swap. But for me, I would love to like get more time with the core group and
Mhm.
really kind of whittle it down to people who are actually truly in the swap.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that to me just last weekend, and I've been sitting with that a lot of just like, okay, yeah, and like is one of the iterations people, like some people have legitimately just for whatever reason they've had to move away and they have been pivotal in the swap. Um, like, what would it look like to have swappers that are still like does it make sense for some of them to live all over the world and still have those touch points? Like, what can support look like, even if it's not local? But, or like, yeah, I don't know. I have more questions than answers, but I 100% agree that like, it's like either another group or something like yeah, I don't have it fully formed, but I'm with you in like that desire for more into like what it would
Mhm.
take to make it a yes for people for people to be intimate or like to open
And
up, I guess I should say. Yeah.
and Kristen, it is a difficult process. I mean, both Sarah and I have been in groups that we were very intimate in, both sort of in person and sort of online, and then we leave, either that was together or separately, and you're no longer part of that inner circle, and it hurts. It's like your abandonment wound and everything sort of,
Right.
like I'm still useful. Um, but then these alternative other groups still are sort of available to you to be the touch point to sort of say, oh, by the way, I left 3 years ago, but I can still be an offer of support for X, and for a time being can re-enter the group. So I think there are ways, and I think ultimately, if there is a concern on your side of upsetting people, um, or anything like that, you know, yeah, it's real. There will be a point of rejection for whoever's on the outside saying, I gave X amount of years to this. But I think ultimately they will also understand, as we have had to, as I've had to, that those living in a particular space at a particular time are the ones who are contributing the most. And
Right.
you are trying to create intimacy through
Yeah.
this group, not just resource sharing. And I think times you do have to, and Sarah's right, create a bit of a harder separation between those two concepts, because there are some people in that probably for, or possibly for, resource sharing, and there are others who want deeper connection with their neighbors and potential friends and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely curious to pick your brains about this as, potential co-admins of this space. So I'm super excited to have had you on. Yeah, to just have this conversation as it's like, okay, what does the next iteration look like? How can, yeah, and to just acknowledge the work that we have all been putting in to make this the space that we want it to be and the community that we want to be a part of. Um, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I just would say you're doing an amazing, unpaid, greatly appreciated set of jobs and roles. And I just want to honor the fact that you are one of the reasons we did decide to move this neighborhood. You're also one of the reasons we decided to stay in this neighborhood. And just by you existing here and the connection we've made, to whatever degree, it makes me feel like we're safer as a queer couple and an interracial family. So I
Hear,
just want to
hear.
thank you for that.
And while you're taking a breath there, Kristen, I mean, yeah. Sarah often puts into words what's in my mind more beautifully than I can express. But I also think for anyone listening to this, that this is how change occurs, and this isn't just, well, it is just a small community space somewhere in Costa Rica of people from all over the world, but it is also how change occurs in the world and how we connect for betterment, right? And it starts small, but these ripple effects can also be significant if we allow them to be. And I know that's a grander point, but I think it's important that people understand that it is as small as it is right now for us, but it is much bigger in intent.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. That means oh, it means a lot. It's like yeah, it's I have the intention to show up in the world in a certain way. And it's just like, oh, yay. Thank you. Ah, I love you guys.
Love you back.
Same.
I'll,
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
inviting us.
I'll see you. I'll see you around. I'll probably like go for a walk.
Probably
And,
see you in 2 hours.
yeah, for anyone listening, I mean, like y'all, like these are literally like my friends and my neighbors that live like what 2 minutes door to door, maybe like on foot. So
Mhm.
it's
No
super
walking.
super super
We're very
special, and
lucky.
I will 100% let you cook for me, Dina.
I
That's
know.
such a
It's
treat.
a swap promise that I still need to come through on. I apologize for
No need to
not following through
apologize.
yet.
No need to apologize. We can just hold the intention together, and I'm excited whenever it happens. All right. Thank you both so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kristen.
Connect again soon.
Have a
Bye.
good morning. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Sarah and Dina, for accepting the invitation to come on and have this conversation. It was so meaningful to have it. It feels really important to be able to share it. And of course, as always, for anyone listening, I invite you to respond to this episode on the Substack with any questions, with any comments that came up for you, or any connections that you want to make. A huge part of my life is how do we be together in a good way in our communities. And I think that these are such great practices and such great conversations that whether we're living in the same neighborhood or not, I think that we can still be grappling with some of those same questions. So I would love to hear from folks if it would feel like a meaningful practice for them to share. And I just look forward to what more might come with season 6 and this year. So as always, stay tuned to Substack, because there might be some things that I'll be posting there exclusively and not necessarily recording my voice for the podcast. So if you are not already following the podcast on Substack, I invite you to do that if that sounds like something you would like to do. And I also will refer you to check out the show notes for some offerings by my teacher, Carmen Spagnola. I mentioned in the podcast that I did facilitation training with her, and that is a huge part of how I show up in the Sourdough Swap. And she has some trainings coming up. So I will link to that if facilitation training in this way is something that feels like it would be interesting for you to check out. So if you would like to experience the Numinous Network and try to rewire your brain for connection and attachment, I highly invite you to join me on the Numinous Network with Carmen and all the amazing guides that she has. I'm not going to do a whole plug for it right now, but I've been a member for 5 years, and it is such a great practice space, and it 100% has inspired me in how I show up in holding this space as a facilitator in this Sourdough Swap. So to be in right relationship, I need to plug my teacher. And of course, if you're interested to know more about how to connect and how to practice these types of skills that we talk about in the Numinous Network and the facilitation training and all the things, and joining the Numinous Network just doesn't feel like a thing that's feasible for you, or taking classes, you are in luck, because Carmen is releasing her third book titled How to Connect, Build Strong Bonds and Deep Connections Through Contact Nutrition, no matter your attachment style, trauma history, or neurotype. And it comes out November 4th, 2026. As always, there's a link in the show notes where you can pre-order if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you. I have pre-ordered multiple copies for my friends, for my family, for literally anybody who's interested to read it. I'm like, I want to be in community with people who are reading this book. So I've actually offered it to the Sourdough Swap. I was like, let me know if you want me to order you a book. And somebody in the swap is actually going to bring them from the States to Costa Rica when they ship on November 4th. So I am very excited to get my physical copy. Thank you to the swap for bringing them here so that we'll be able to get them in a timely fashion. All right, I digress. Thank you to John Williams and Anais Mitchell for the inspiration for the theme song of the Stoner Story Witch podcast, as well as Matt Shuby and Kevin Carlo for their creative juices for the cover art and the sound editing and production. And with that, I will leave you with my quote from Rev. Angel Kyoto Williams that says, "Love and justice are not two. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. And without collective change, no change matters." Take good care, everyone. Bye for now.